Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
All right, man. Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. I'm your host, Bob. Fucking right. I got it right that time. And this is Lalo. And before we start, Lalo, I got to say that last time, this whole podcast could be thoroughly wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just spouting off. So last time I made this comment, I was like, we talked about the school shootings, and I said, shootings are way down because, and you made the joke that, well, no schools, no shootings. But in 2020, I found out that we had the highest number of shootings ever. By November, we had 578, which is it was 417 for the entire year of 2019. So there are actually more fucking shootings in 2020 than ever. Congratulations.
Really? 2020 just kept breaking records.
No shit. I don't know how many shootings there are this year. Oh, quite a few.
But I think there's also a good distinction between like shootings and then like mass shootings.
Well, these are all mass shootings.
Oh, those were mass shootings?
Yeah, defined as four people.
FBI says?
4 people who got killed, not including the gunman, is considered a mass shooting. That's the Gun Violence Archive.
I thought it was you don't even have to like kill anybody if you just shoot into like
Yeah,
you're right. They could get injured. Even if they get injured, it's still considered a mass shooting.
4 people get... Well, yeah, because a shooting's a shooting, whether you fucking die or not, right? You're right.
But I mean, regardless, it's still pretty upsetting. But
is it? Yeah, I guess it is. I was thinking about it today because I knew we were going to podcast tonight, and I was thinking about it. I was like, this is so fucking terrible. Whenever you go to the store, it runs through my mind, dude. It happens so often. I'm often thinking, well, I'm going to go to Food Max. I hope there's not a fucking shooting because I'm getting an avocado or something,
Yeah. I mean, those kind of thoughts usually tend to like happen to me when there's like a recent mass shooting, when it'll be like a recent one that will be like at a grocery store, and then like the next time or two that I'm at a grocery store, I just think about it like, oh shit, like this shit could happen like anywhere, anytime,
It can, and what can we do about it though? I mean, right? Just keep your head down, I guess.
Oh, like during a mass shooting, what can you do?
Yeah.
I think it depends like where you're at, where the situation is, If you're like in the back of the store and you hear like shooting up front, I don't know about you, but I'm going out the back door.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to make the joke where I was gonna, use a child as a shield, but I won't do that.
He's a meat shield.
There's already been 126 mass shootings in the United States.
I mean, I won't use my child as a meat shield, but if there's like
not mine,
a random kid running by.
Yeah, exactly.
I might throw him on my back. I could excuse it as like trying to save him, but in reality, he's covering my back.
There's been 126 so far, and that doesn't include April. So that was just 35 in January, 43 in February, and 48 in March.
Those numbers usually tend to increase during the summer, the hot months.
Yeah,
just because like when it gets hotter, people get more irritable. That's actually a thing. It's crazy. I remember when I heard that, I was like, it makes sense, but you never really. That's not something you ever really think about,
Yeah, that's true. And again, here we are. It happens more in poverty-stricken neighborhoods. Just like always, socioeconomic shit again.
I feel like regular shootings tend to happen more in poverty-stricken neighborhoods. But I don't know the exact statistics, but I feel like the mass shootings, that like we all hear about and that are all over the news.
Yeah.
I feel like those are more like random or spread out, if that makes sense, when it
Yeah.
comes to like location and like demographics. I mean, most of the time you'll hear about them like in universities or like uh, schools, you know. So I think those are more like the range is wider, you know, about where they happen. But like regular shootings, like a lot of them are like due to like gang violence and burglary stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Those
Not reported.
naturally, yeah, those will naturally just happen more in poverty-stricken neighborhoods, just because poverty incentivizes, not incentivizes, but
Incentive.
poverty creates crime, you know,
Yes, I agree.
or crime is higher crime is a result of poverty. I think that's a better way of putting it.
Okay. Yeah, it is because when you force people into poverty like that, then they still have to eat and they still want televisions and they still want to live inside and they want all the things that everyone else has. You don't give
Yeah.
them the opportunities to do it legally, and the legal opportunities you offer them are $10 an hour. That's not how
And
it works, man.
it's not just wanting things too. It's like your basic necessities, you know.
Right.
There's stories of people that rob, you know, they'll rob a grocery store or they'll rob like a pharmacy, you know, because they need the medicine or else, you
Right.
know, they're gonna die or you know their kid's gonna die.
Yeah, they rob a grocery store and grab a pack of diapers on their way out.
Yeah, so it's a lot of things that are very like preventable and problems that we could solve that will indirectly or directly, you know, decrease crime and then you know decrease shootings, just
Well,
crime in general.
I was reading, like I said, when we got on the night, I was reading a story about the new gun control laws, and Biden is focusing on these four actions that don't make any fucking sense, and one of them is like he wants the Department of Justice to curb this thing that you can put on a handgun and it turns it into a short barrel rifle. Who gives a fuck? Really, how is that going to stop mass shootings? How is that going to stop crime? I can turn my pistol into a short barreled rifle and that gives me the opportunity to shoot more people. No, it doesn't. It doesn't do anything. It's like limiting the size of ammunition and all these dumb fucking laws. I don't know what the real laws should be, but I've seen some pretty intelligent um, legislation try to get entered in. Like when you do a background check, you're looking at, instead of just crime in general, you're looking at what kind of crime it was and are there mental health issues. But I don't know if mental health issues are reported because of private health laws. So what's the deal here? What are we going to do, man?
I think when it comes to gun laws, uh, a lot of the time, it's uh, when it comes to Democrats, it's always attacking the gun itself, you know, as the problem.
Right.
Um, and then the obvious response from the right is, you know, like "fuck off, you're not taking my guns." Um, so it just, to me, it just creates like this like cycle of like BS and
Yeah.
just back and forth that isn't really attacking the, like you said, the main issues, which is like mental health and you know sensible gun laws. Because I mean, I'm very like pro gun myself. Like that's the one thing with like the right that I have in common. I mean, I hate the NRA. Don't get me wrong. The NRA is like they're fucking idiots. But like guns themselves, like I don't really support like the ban on like assault rifles because that just doesn't make sense. Like if you really think about it, because when it comes to gun crime, they make up like 1 to 3% of all gun related crime.
Right.
So you're
Right.
gonna ban an entire like classification of guns for 1 to 3% of all crime. I feel like that's not attacking the real issue. You know, and then people like to say, well, why do you need guns like that? Why do you need an assault rifle? And it's not that you need an assault rifle, but we should be allowed to own one. It's not like people like it's not that common that you hear. Um, like I said, it's only like 1 to 3%. So all the mass shootings that we hear about, they tend to be used like the people tend to use assault rifles just because they have like higher capacity magazines and stuff like that.
Right, right. And
But at the end of the day, it's a very small percentage. So I don't think that's really attacking the main issue, and I just don't see that helping. Like it might help like the statistics a little bit,
yeah, one to
but
3%.
yeah, you're not gonna like really solve the gun issue or
So
the shootings issue.
that in 2020, that would have been about, you would have eliminated 5 shootings out of 578. And I don't think that's not going to help too much. It seems to me that you want to attack things like assault rifles because it, it, it looks good, that no one should have them. Well, in using logic, we could say, okay, then all cars that can go above 130 miles an hour should get banned because no one should have them, right?
The thing with when people say that argument, and I've heard that one actually fairly recent, or like they'll try to like mock you and be like, oh well, you could kill. There was a person that like killed several people with a knife, so like let's ban all knives. Trying to like mock the argument of banning assault
Hmm.
rifles. And the difference to me is that a gun's sole purpose is, I mean, if you think about it, it's to kill. Like yeah, people use it to hunt and like just for target practice and as
Right.
hobbies, go shooting on the range or whatever. But a gun's sole purpose is to kill. It's gonna shoot this projectile at hundreds of feet per second at something, and that thing's usually
Go-
dead at the other end.
Gonna die, right?
When it comes to like cars and like knives and stuff like that's not the intended use of a car or the intended use of a knife. Depending on the knife, obviously. Um, but
A
like that
stiletto,
that
yeah.
that argument doesn't really, you can't really compare the two. Um, but regardless, I feel like you're ignoring, because like you said, if we eliminate assault rifles, that would take away like 5 or 6 shootings. But those 5 or 6 shootings are the 5 or 6 shootings that were spread out throughout the year that take all the news coverage because they're mass shootings, and like 10 people, 15 people died here and there. And that's what gets all the news cycle. You don't hear, I mean, you'll hear about like, your local shooting or like, gang violence and stuff like that. But those big ones that are like on the news for several days and like take over everything are
Right.
the big mass shootings that you hear about that, seem to happen on an annual basis.
The ones that dwarf the news, and yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we hear about. And then that's what creates, the main narrative of, let's ban this type of gun and let's ban this and let's ban that. And then the other side that's like, they're going to take our guns and all this and all that. And it's just like on one side, it's like fear mongering. And on the other side, it's like trying to overreach. And it doesn't do anything, in my opinion.
So what what's the balance here? What can we do to, you know what? I don't, Lalo, really, dude. There, how many fucking millions of guns are there in this country? And it's too late to say anything now. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like when I know my father has probably 30 or 40, and my uncle has 30 or 40, and it's like, why do you need that many guns? I have two. I have a handgun and a shotgun. So that's enough.
I mean, it's like I said, it's not that you need 30 or 40, but I don't personally see anything wrong with having, like a large amount of guns. I mean, at the end of the day, you have two fucking arms. It's not like you could shoot all 40 of them at the same time. So it's not
Yeah.
like somebody's gonna go with their fucking arsenal full of guns and, load them up and just start emptying, every single gun that they have. That usually doesn't happen. If you have 30 or 40 guns, uh, like 99.99% of the time, those are like responsible gun owners that,
Mhm.
usually don't
Yeah,
do
they
shit.
both my dad and my uncle have $10,000 gun safes, and everything's taken care of
Yeah, and
and
usually
put away
you hear
properly.
like the mass shooters, or the mass shootings that happen. It's usually like some dude that's like off his rocker that like bought the gun like last week, and he's like been planning this shit for like a month, and then he goes and like does what he does. And that's usually how it happens. It's never like a gun, like someone that's obsessed with guns that goes on and does these mass shootings. So you have to see like the kind of people that do these shootings, and it's usually somebody that's not mentally stable.
Well, what did the 3-day waiting period do? Did it stop? Did it slow down or stop anything?
Well, I don't think it should be three. I think it should be longer, but those waiting periods, those are used for like background checks. Those could be used for um, like deep background checks, mental health evaluations. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with like mandatory um, mental health evaluations. I don't see anything wrong with um, like to be able to buy a gun, you have to like take a class on how a gun works and how to handle it and how to, you
Right.
know, store it safely. I mean, you have to do all that stuff for a driver's license. They don't just give you a driver's license like, yeah, oh yeah, good luck.
Good
You have to
luck.
take a test. You have to prove that you know how to drive.
Right.
So for
I
me, a
did that.
sensible a sensible gun law would be prove that you're physically and mentally able to own a gun. I mean,
Well,
I don't
that's what
I
I
don't think
did here in
that's very
California.
radical. Yeah, and I don't think that's very radical and crazy. I mean, if there's nothing wrong with you, if everything's good, then you'll have your gun in like 2 weeks.
Well,
It's like the dude in Atlanta that shot up all those spas, like those massage parlors. He bought his gun that same day. Like he went out, bought it. He bought his handgun, and he went and shot all those people that same day that he bought it.
you mean you you can buy a gun the same day in some states?
I'm pretty sure. I'm guessing the more south you go, the more lax the gun laws are. Um, but I mean, there's like gun show loopholes, and then people like to say, well,
Oh
it's not
yeah.
really a loophole. Uh, if you're what is it, like a licensed arms dealer, you have to, still do the waiting period. But if you're not a licensed arms dealer, you can just sell it to whoever you want.
Right.
In a lot of places, you don't have to background check them. You don't have to, as long as they have the cash, most people don't care. They'll hand it off.
Yeah, that's very true.
And when it comes to like something like a car, yeah, you want to sign the pink slip, yeah, here, take the car. But I think when it comes to a gun, something that, like I said, was made to kill, that has that purpose and that ability, I think it should be heavily regulated. I don't think any kind of gun should be banned. I mean, apart from like automatic weapons. Um, but like other than that, like I've seen people that have like a sniper rifle. No one's gonna go on a mass shooting with a sniper rifle, unless you're like that dude in DC like 30 years ago. But other than that, like
Oh, that guy was.
people just, use them for hobbies. Like they'll go out in fucking the middle of Texas in the empty ass field and, shoot a bunch of fucking cans or something.
Why did you choose Texas?
And anywhere. Like I have friends that they'll have their guns. I have a friend that owns a M1 Garand, you know,
Yeah,
and it's just a cool, like it's an old gun. It's cool to have, it's cool to, show it or like hang it on your wall or whatever you want to do with it.
he has an
Uh,
M1.
yeah, an M1 Garand, the little like the old ass ones are like clink 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 clink.
Yeah.
Really cool. Um, so you want to have a fucking musket, go for it.
Oh man, my uncle Larry, he goes deer hunting. He goes to buck season. He goes to doe season. He has a bow and arrow, and he kills a doe during bow and arrow season, and then he has musket season, and he has fucking like this 10 foot. It You pull the trigger and it goes kablam. It's like
Yeah.
He fucking loves killing shit, and that's cool. I mean, when he kills squirrels and rabbits and deer, and every time there's a season, that motherfucker's out there killing something.
Yeah. I mean, because you're never gonna take the guns out of this country. Like part of the American like culture is guns. Like I don't think that's ever gonna change. Um,
Right.
so I mean, the next best thing. I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but I mean, the if you want to improve it, I would just say regulate them sensibly and strictly. And if people there's gonna be people that have an issue with that just because there's people that just fucking want like government and none of their business until it
Yeah,
unless it benefits them,
of
But
course. Until there's a stimulus check involved.
yeah. So I mean, there's gonna be opposition, but to me, that's the better way to attack the gun issue than banning these types of guns or uh, banning this, banning that. Like
Bump
you need to.
stocks. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the time being, I would ban bump stocks just because we've seen like, have you ever seen a bump stock like in action?
Yes.
Those things are like you can't like differentiate between that and like an automatic weapon. Like
Well,
it's
an automatic weapon has a spring in it, and
well, like, I'm talking about like the firing rate.
yeah, I
Like they're
know it.
pretty much identical.
Yeah, it just mimics a fully automatic weapon.
Yeah,
When I was in the Marine Corps, we had M16s. During my stay in boot camp, we switched over to M16 A1s and A2s, and instead of fully automatic, you just had a 3 round burst,
yeah.
and that's all
And
you
I
had.
mean, a lot of people like to say like, why do you need like this military like weapon, in your house? And if you know anything about guns, you know that an AR-15 is nothing like a rifle that they give you in the military. It's
No,
like leaps and bounds, like way more, deadly and more advanced,
right.
the one that they give you in the actual military. Um,
Well, why don't
so
we arm everyone? Because I have an example where that works. Did that dude, I think it was Texas, where that dude stood up to shoot everybody and that motherfucker popped him in church.
well, I don't have any problem with people arming themselves, but when you arm everyone, I don't think you should arm everyone, especially when everyone's not capable of handling a weapon. Like I said, whether it be mentally or physically.
Well, obviously that guy in the church, he was capable. So
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, there's a lot of people that like they know the power that a gun holds, and they respect that power, and so they respect the gun, they handle it with care, they know what it's capable of, and those people are usually like the most responsible gun owners.
yeah,
So I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with people like that, that see something happening on the street, some guys like fucking just shooting people at will. And if you're there and you have a gun and you want to try to intervene, all the power to you.
but you're going out the back with a kid on your.
I mean, if I don't have a gun, yeah, I'm going out the back. As long as the kid's protecting all my vital organs, we're good.
That's awesome, man. All right.
Yeah, it's just like I've said before, every issue is very complicated. There's no like one, straight answer to solve it. But there's definitely steps we could take to mitigate it and to make it easier on us, like as a society, especially here in the United States, where we're very gun centric and gun crazy, and everybody loves their guns. Which I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But you also have to. It can't be limitless power. Um, I think that's one of the few rights that we have that needs to be a little like policed, and regulated.
Yeah. Curtailed just a little. Come on.
Yeah.
Uh, a guy that I talk to quite a lot, and he, he says, he has a big issue with gun control, but even in his zeal, he still says we need to do something because this is way fucked up, what's happening right now.
Yeah,
So
and for most people, that fear is just that fear mongering from the right that's pushed this narrative of they want to, take your guns away. nobody will ever go into your house and take your guns away. Like, unless you did some batshit crazy like stuff, nobody's gonna just waltz into your house for no fucking reason and take your gun away. Like, nobody's ever proposed that. Nobody's ever gonna propose that. I don't know why people like have that engraved in their head. I mean, most of it's because of the NRA. Like I said, that's why I fucking hate them, because they're just like this huge lobbying party of like fucking like fear, and it's just that's what drives that narrative. Like, they're afraid of gun control. Ask them what specifically are they afraid of? They're afraid that their guns are going to get taken away. That is
Right.
what they fear, and that is something that nobody has proposed, nobody has said, and that just won't happen. All these like, even the current like proposals to ban assault rifles, they all of them, every single one that I've seen has a grandfather clause, to where if you already own, a certain type of gun, you are grandfathered in, you don't count, you get to keep your gun. Every single one that I've seen. So even the most, quote unquote radical gun policies don't take your guns away. And that's
Okay.
what people don't understand. They don't get that. And because they don't look at the research, they just listen to fucking Fox News and all these, people on the right, that they say they're going to take your guns away. How is Joe Biden going to take your gun away when supposedly Obama already took them away, 4 years ago? Because that's what they were saying then. So it just doesn't make sense.
People do not educate themselves. They listen to other people educate them. They don't read the laws. It's like in Christianity, Christians don't read the Bible. They rely on someone else to read the Bible and interpret it for them. And that just feeds across our entire culture. People don't, when legislation comes down, they don't say, well, I'm going to go online and read the legislation. You know what? Because you can. But it's written in language that you can understand. So you rely on some NRA motherfucker to stand up there and go, they want to take your guns away. And that's not what you're right. That's not what they want to do at all. They just want to regulate it a little more. And I don't see what the fucking problem is, because anybody will go down to the DMV, pay their goddamn taxes, pay their license fees, pay for insurance, pay for gasoline, pay for taxes, just so they can drive a car. It's highly regulated how fast they can go, where they can take the car, where they can drive the car onto other people's land, all kinds of shit. There's all kinds of laws about cars, and nobody says dick about that. Nobody says anything about that. But as soon as you say we're gonna tweak a gun law, no, you're not. You're gonna take my guns, aren't you?
Yeah, they think, that's where it starts. They always say that. Oh, it's gonna start with that. And then, next thing you know, they're gonna be barging in my door. And like, that's just some like tinfoil hat type of shit that makes no sense.
But everybody believes it.
Yeah, and that's the main issue. Like, people don't, like you said, they don't read, they don't do their self research, their own research, and they just take everything for face value that they see on Facebook or that they hear on the news. And it just, once you get them in that mindset, it's very hard to get them out. Um,
Right. Right.
Especially if that's been like their whole life. I've talked to people that they'll tell me things that they think, that they believe that a party stands for, and I'm like, that they don't do that at all. Like, I've talked to you about like people that think that the Republican Party cares about abortion and being fiscally responsible. And if you look at the Republican Party, like, they don't give a fuck about abortion. They say they do because you do. And when you do, the longer you do, or like as long as you care about it, they know they have single issue voters that just fringe on that one issue, and that's the only reason that they're voting Republican.
Yeah, that's their
Uh,
base.
yeah, and like I've said, the Supreme Court right now is 6-3 conservative. That's a heavy swing towards conservative. If they wanted to, they could at least try to abolish abortion in the Supreme Court, but they don't, because they know if they actually succeed in that, they're going to lose a lot of voters, because that's the only thing they were hanging on to. And once they have that already, they'll focus on other issues, and they'll realize that, damn, Republicans really ain't shit when it comes to these other issues. I'm going to go the other way. Same thing with being like fiscally responsible, quote unquote. Since when are Republicans fiscally responsible?
Never.
Since,
Well,
I mean, if you go
maybe
back
in the
to
past.
maybe like in the 1800s, um, but ever since then, like, especially starting with Reagan, like fiscally responsible, they just think fiscally responsible is, because they think Republicans just don't like to spend money, Oh, they don't want to spend on, these programs, or they don't want to, they'll lower taxes and, trickle down, la la la, make all this money. Like, we've tried that so many times. We try that every single time we're Republicans in office, since Reagan. But every single time they do that, it doesn't work. And it's proven, it's in the numbers. Our deficit has skyrocketed every single time there's a Republican in office,
Including Donald Trump.
including Donald Trump. It
Yep.
started with Reagan. When you cut taxes and still spend a lot of money, that's not being fiscally responsible. When George Bush had record tax cuts for the wealthy, and then started one of the most expensive wars of all time, you think that's being fiscally responsible? No, dude. Like, our shit, fucking, our deficit, our debt skyrocketed during the Bush years. We were in a surplus when we had Bill Clinton.
Yes.
And I get it. Yeah, we had a war. I mean, an unnecessary war, albeit, but even if it was a quote unquote necessary war, um, why would you cut taxes? You're supposed to balance the budget, like they like to say, and balance everything out. If you're gonna spend a lot of money, you should also be bringing in a lot of money. If you make $4,000 a month at your house, you're not going to go buy a house with a mortgage payment of $3,500 a month,
Right.
and then have $500 for everything else. Like, that's just being stupid. And
Not
that's
unless I
exactly
have a printing press, which they do.
but even then, like, they don't bring enough money to cover everything that they spend. And
No, just
spending
plunge
money,
deeper into debt.
yeah, and spending isn't just, an actual like programs and whatever, the military budget and everything. Spending also has to do with the tax rates, because when you lower the tax rates, you're lowering the money that you're bringing in as a government. So when lower the tax rates and then spend a shit ton of money on the military every single year, who's being fiscally responsible there? Like, who? And I mean, they've admitted this. Like, there's an interview, I don't know if you've seen it, with Ted Cruz, where they ask him about this. Like, do you know, you have to know that that's what you guys are doing. And he admits it, like, yeah, like, we kind of turn a blind eye when we have a Republican president when it comes to the deficit and the national
Right.
debt. And it kind of it suddenly out of nowhere becomes a main focus when we have Obama or Biden. All of a sudden, like, oh, we have to, our deficit's like $30 trillion, like, we have to get that down, like, we can't be spending so much. All of a sudden they care about it, but not during the past 4 years or 8 years when we had Bush.
Well, I
Like,
know, and the stupid thing is it's the thing that they're complaining about is the thing that they fucking created. It was them.
yeah. So I
So
mean, like I said, we had a surplus with Bill Clinton, and literally one presidency later, we were in debt trillions of dollars. So you tell me who's being irresponsible there and who's
well
being
now
responsible.
Biden wants to spend was it 2 trillion on the infrastructure?
Yeah, it was like two or three.
Yeah,
Um,
so he wants to raise taxes on corporations.
yeah, he's also yeah. That's the thing. If you're gonna spend, $3 trillion, you also have to raise the taxes.
You got to bring
And
it
but
in.
guess what? Every your average any person that's like 90% of people that listen to that are not gonna see their taxes affected. It's
Right.
literally like the richest of the rich, and the biggest corporations, which probably don't pay little to no taxes at all right now. Um, so it's like, it's not gonna affect you. It's gonna help you. People vote Republican. They're voting for their own, like, poverty to continue. They're voting for their own oppression to continue. And they
Right.
don't see that. That's what they don't see, because they're brainwashed into thinking, that, like I said earlier, they're gonna take your guns, they're gonna do this and that. Like, the Republican Party is so, like, full of shit. It's like, it's crazy how, like, from me, like, seeing all this and, like, looking, from the outside in, like, I don't understand how so many people are, like, trapped in that mindset. and like believe all this. There's people in like fucking Kentucky and Mississippi, all these like red states that have been red for fucking ever. They're like they're the poorest states in the country. Like, how can you live your entire life poor, voting for one thing, expecting it to change? Like, you see it, you've seen it your whole life. You've had the same leadership, you've had the same type of leaders, you've had the same ideas your entire life, and nothing has changed. If anything, you've gotten poorer because the rich are getting rich and the poor are getting poorer. So you've gotten poorer as you've grown, and you still continue to agree with them, and you still continue to side with them, and you don't question anything they say. Whatever they tell you, you're poor because Obama, or you're poor because of Biden, and you believe it. Like, you have to question it, and especially when it's not working for you.
But they don't, man, I grew up in that, and what they don't understand is that grandpa's politics don't work anymore. Okay. And grandpa told dad and dad told you, and that's the way it's always been. And it's always been the Democrats' fault, or it's always been this is the problem. And the problem is those Republicans come into that poor state and they stand at podiums and they just tell absolute fucking lies about what the problem is. They never say how they're going to fix the problem, and then it just continues and continues. Poor states have poor education systems. Poor education systems turn out undereducated people, and we're not calling them stupid, and I'm not calling them ignorant. I'm saying you're undereducated. If I've never learned and I've never been taught that I need to question authority, and I've always been taught to respect my elders and to respect authority, then what they say fucking goes, dude. And it's not those people's fault that they just live like that and they accept it.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I think that contributes to what's going on. What you said about education,
Yeah.
like you said, these are the poor states, with with equally as poor education levels.
Yep.
So it's like a cycle that just feeds into itself. Um, and I mean, if you ask me, that's the way Republicans want it to stay. The poorer and the more uneducated you are, the better for them, because you'll listen to them. There's a reason why, you know, most of, academia and like, quote, highly educated people, or, people that go to college, there's a reason why they tend to be more democratic, because they go to school, they learn what these things are, they learn how the government works, they learn like what causes what, and how policies affect their community, and what policies are good, what policies are bad. They learn about this. It changes the way they think. It changes the way they view the world. And when you're stuck in your same little town your entire life, and your children and your grandchildren are going to be there too, because there's no way out, because of poverty, because of bad education. It's just a cycle. It's a never-ending cycle. And
Up until the age of the internet, each little town had its little newspaper,
yeah,
and you didn't know what the fuck was going on in the world unless that little newspaper told you, or you watch Walter Cronkite on CBS News every evening. It's a pick and choose situation of what you're being told. So they're way, way behind, and they shouldn't be anymore. They shouldn't be anymore. But the problem with poverty-stricken America, including rural America and inner cities, is crime and drugs have taken over everything now.
yeah,
So my hometown is overrun with heroin and meth and crime, and no tax base and no jobs. And like you said, they don't have the information they need, but they've never been taught how to get the information that would help them.
yeah. And I feel like there's a shift coming.
I do
It's
too. I really
it's a
do.
slow shift, and we've seen it. Like, when's the last time that a Republican president won a popular election? It's
Um,
been
it's
it's
been
been years.
wasn't
It's been decades.
Yeah, wasn't it Reagan?
I think so. That's the last time that they won a popular election. The Republican Party knows that they're not getting, new voters. They're not, at least not at the pace that the Democrats are,
Right.
because of, like you said, the internet, this age of information where, we have the entire, we have the biggest library in the world at, in the palm of our hands with smartphones.
Right.
Um, they know like that shift is coming, that tide is coming. So they've ditched and they've ditched their efforts of trying to get new voters, and they've gone to like their old tactics of just trying to disenfranchise voters and voter suppression
Oh yeah,
and
like Georgia.
gerrymandering.
Oh
Um,
man.
so they it's like they could see their end coming, if that makes sense. Like
Right.
they could see
Yeah.
the light at the end of the tunnel. And I truly believe the
And
Republican
this
Party
time it
will.
is a train.
I truly believe the Republican Party is. It might not like completely like abolish itself, but there's gonna be a major shift in it. Whether it be in like ideology, they're gonna have to do something because what they're doing right now isn't working, and they see it, they know it. Especially in this last election, and especially in places like Georgia, like like you said,
Yeah. Georgia,
that state
Texas, and Arizona.
that state has been red for so many years, and it flipped this time around, and it's because more people voted than ever before.
Right.
Same with Texas. I mean, Texas stayed red, but Texas is pretty close to 50-50 right now, if you really break it down,
Right.
population wise. So they see these things. They see that the more people vote, the more they lose. So their only solution is to get less people to vote. That's what created that Georgia voter bill that just passed,
Oh man,
which is
that's such
absolute, like, it's
a
so ridiculous.
travesty. It's a travesty, dude.
And people
Seriously.
like to say, why is it so difficult? Like, what's so wrong about voter ID laws? Like, why is it what's so bad about showing your ID to vote? And when I hear that, I say voting is a right, and all your rights should be easy.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so the more barriers you put in front of it, and the more difficult you make it, that's unconstitutional. That's wrong, man. There's people that they don't have an ID or it expired,
Mhm.
and guess what? They're gonna have to go take a time out of their working day. Take in mind, a lot of these people are already pretty poor. They can't afford to take a whole day off to wait all day long at the DMV to pay for a brand new ID. Um, they have things in that voting bill that are like the last day to register to vote is like 5 weeks before the election.
Right.
Uh, they have, like the whole thing that's on the news, like you can't hand out water, you can't hand out food. The voting
That
drop-in
that is the most
mailboxes
yeah, that
are
is the
like,
most ridiculous part, dude, that you can't hand somebody water. And I didn't know what that was fucking about, but apparently it's about if someone comes up to you and hands you water in line, you might change your mind.
and see, that's a BS argument. Like
I know.
nobody fucking believes that. Like, you know what? You have a Trump hat and you give me water, I'm gonna vote for Trump instead. Nobody does that shit, dude. Like nobody
I
thinks like
know.
that.
Nobody does.
And
First person
then
that hands me water, I'm voting for that motherfucker.
yeah, it's not like you're fucking dying of thirst and they're holding your only lifeline. But I mean, you've seen like the videos. I've seen the videos and like the statistics on this. In some of these places, the voting lines are hours long. They're like
Yeah.
9+ hours long to fucking vote, dude. Something that's a right. 9+ hours long. People keep saying, I've heard people compare like, oh, am I gonna cry? Am I gonna if Disneyland makes me wait in line for a ride without water? Are you waiting in line for that ride for 9 hours? If it's a 9 hour long line for a fucking ride, yeah, I'm gonna ask for some water.
Yeah.
Um, so you can't compare those two. Did you hear about the whole like MLB All Star game that got moved?
Yeah. Yeah.
They moved it to Denver, to Colorado, and a lot of people are saying, well, Colorado has this has voter ID laws too. And if you look at their laws, they're so different. It's not even funny. First of all, voter ID, you can take any form of ID. Um, you could take a fucking electric bill with your name on it, and that's your ID. Uh,
Okay.
there's same day voter registration. You could go. You're an unregistered voter. Go on voting day. They could register you, and you could cast your vote that same day. Their mail drop off boxes are open 24 hours a day. So like, it's not even remotely close to being the same thing. Um, so I don't get why people like try to defend this bill as something that's not a big deal. Why do you think they proposed this bill in Georgia right after they lost the state?
Yeah,
Uh, like
exactly.
that itself just says so much about the Republican Party and what they stand for. They want to make it harder for you to vote because they know that doing that will help them. And the people that have the hardest time voting are usually in these low income, usually full of minorities, black, brown people. That voting for them is sometimes an afterthought because they have other shit to worry about. There's a
The
reason why Republicans are so anti mail-in voting because that shit's easy. You can fill it out at your house, leave it in your mailbox, and forget about it. You don't have to take a whole day fucking waiting in line or remember to go vote, on a fucking Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the work week. You could literally vote in your house, the comfort of your home, fucking mail that shit in, a week, a month, 2 months in advance, and forget about it. And
yeah,
it should be that easy, but
I
it's
did.
not.
I sat,
Exactly.
I filled it out in my underwear on the couch, and then I fucking
That's
mailed it.
another thing that Colorado does. They to all their registered voters, they automatically send a mail ballot. Um, without you having to request one. If you don't request it in some states, you don't get it, and then you have to vote in person. Make sure you're registered by this date, and make sure you have this valid ID, and come wait in line, and then they limit the number of like polls in like certain counties.
Yeah,
Why do you think they do that?
right.
Because they know it's gonna help them.
So the
Like
lines will be
Jesus
longer.
Christ, dude! Like it's like the writing's on the wall. It's right in front of you. They know they can't win, so they're doing all this shady ass shit so they can win. And to me, that's just like what do you stand for when you do shit like that? Like when you do stuff like that, it just like what else could you stand for that would make you like that would make me want to agree with you?
Anti-abortion.
It just it's so obvious and it's so like I said, it's literally written on their wall. Like they have it on their face. They don't want people to vote. Um, and I just think it's ridiculous and it's stupid.
Well, I I wholeheartedly agree with you, but I think the thing that would end all of this is if there would be some way we could just vote online, use the internet. Then it would be over, man. The
I
Republicans would fucking disappear.
Yeah, if you could like vote on a fucking like app, like you do everything else in your life.
Yeah,
You do your banking on your phone. You could literally buy anything you want on your phone. You can control your entire life on your phone. You could buy a fucking
right.
house on your phone.
You can buy everything. You can buy a car without looking at it and have it delivered to your house. And then they turn around and they tell me, well, voting on your phone isn't safe. Bullshit. If I can fucking do my banking on my phone and pay my bills on my phone and buy anything I want to do on my phone, why the fuck can't I vote?
That's the thing we can. I'm sure if we really wanted to, and I'm sure there's even places around the world that do some sort of like mobile voting. Um, but they'll say stuff like that, like, oh, it's not safe. There's a security risk that goes into that just to not do it. Like that's their excuse to not do something. Like we're the most advanced country in the entire world and we can't fucking figure this shit out. We have 50 states with 50 different voting regulations and voting rules and stuff. Like that's to me that's stupid.
It looks like Switzerland, Argentina, Australia, a lot of them, dude. A lot of them vote
So
online.
yeah, see, so we're capable of doing all these other things that would improve, our well-being and just streamline everything. Like once you could do that, who knows what else you could streamline. and at the end of the day, it will better like our lives and everybody's lives. But we don't do it because there's a minority in the country that is holding us back. And a minority, I mean like a minority of people, as in Republicans.
A minority
I
of
don't,
powerful people.
I don't want to get misconstrued there, but like that's
Aha! I knew it.
so it's so frustrating to me, like, and to see it like every single day, and then just reading comments on people, like, you have no idea. I could get in like 20 Twitter arguments every fucking day if I wanted to with some fucking idiot that, you know, argues themselves into circles and doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
Oh, every
And you could give them the facts, you could give them numbers, you could give them the statistics, and it doesn't matter.
well,
It just doesn't matter.
I know, because every argument you give them, their argument is, "I'm sorry, you're misinterpreting your own argument, and here's the facts." Well, no, that's not the facts. Here's the facts. No, that's not the facts. Here's the facts. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you could show them legitimate arguments, legitimate numbers, and that's not the way it really is. It, and that goes back to our earlier talk about people just don't want to believe. They don't want to believe the fucking truth. They want to believe what they want to believe, and you can't argue with them. It doesn't matter about what it is.
Yeah, and it's people are like stuck in like this bubble of their own thoughts because nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong, that they fucked up. And it's like, that's not the point of you being wrong and me being right. The point is for like things to improve. Like, who gives a fuck if who's wrong and who's right? It's for things to improve. And obviously the way that, the Republican Party does things don't improve that way.
No, they
And you
don't.
have to see that. People have to see that. And they slowly are. I truly think they slowly are. Um, but there's still a big chunk of people out there that are just like so stubborn and stuck in their ways. Um, and they don't want to go against their own beliefs because, like I said, they don't want to admit, whether to other people or to themselves, that they're wrong. It's like a pride thing, almost.
Yeah, you know what, dude? That reminds me. I just did write a blog about this, about that 90-day thing that I'm doing, that life change challenge that I took on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that changed me in ways that I I couldn't imagine that was going to happen. But one of the things in my life that recently has changed is I was a pretty negative person, and things were always wrong and things were always fucked up. And I took that as it was almost a part of my personality. People expected it out of me. It was intertwined. When you talk to me, that was going to be my belief system, and that's how I express myself and how I believe myself to be. And I think that you're right, that people don't want to change because they're afraid that they're going to look stupid for some odd reason. And if I took on this air of positivity, and for the longest time, man, I felt like a fucking imposter. Because everything I had changed my mind. So if you go into Appalachia and you say, okay, Billy, Joe, Ray, Bob, here's the truth of the matter. Oh, so suddenly this guy looks at you and he goes, oh, fuck, man, I've always, and when he says always, he means since before he can remember, grew up believing this lie about guns or racism or any of the fucking problems that come from these small Appalachian places in the South and poverty-stricken areas. He believes, and that's a part of his personality. And in order for him to change his mind, he becomes something that he never has been. And that, as well as I do, being in the mental health field, changing your fucking mind about something that's ensconced in your personality is monumentally difficult.
Yeah, because literally everything that you see it differently now,
Yeah, everything you've looked at this problem through this lens of a lie your whole life, and suddenly you find out you're wrong. That feels embarrassing. Number one, to me, when I changed my personality, I was embarrassed to be positive. and I took a lot of flack from the people that were around me. So, Billy Joe Ray Bob's going to take a lot of shit, and he's going to have to change friends, and he's going to have to change his mind and change his life. He may lose his job. There's all kinds of things that are intertwined in that culture that it's hard to come out and say, you know what, the Republicans are wrong and Donald Trump is wrong. And suddenly everybody that you've ever talked to, known, loved, fucked, drank with, smoked pot with, suddenly all those people are like, what the fuck do you mean we're wrong?
Yeah.
So it's
And
really
that's
hard to change, man.
yeah, and that's something a lot of people would rather just not do, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. They'd rather just live the lie. So, there are probably a lot of people eh, right now in the United States that are living in the turmoil of change that we are experiencing, and they want to be better people, and they want to believe the truth, and they suddenly see the numbers, and they're like, wait a minute, how can I change my life to fit into this new construct and not lose everything I've ever had? And that's an impossibility. You've got to accept the fact that if you change your politics, you're going to change your fucking entire life.
yeah. And I mean, I've been there myself. Like I used to like I wouldn't say like I was like fully supportive, but I would listen to like people like Ben Shapiro.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh, that kind of makes sense, like because they're all about, the individual, and you have to improve yourself and improve society on an individual basis. That's their main like, thing. That's all of like the right wing things. Like everything is an individual issue. If you don't fix it on your own by yourself, then that's your fault. And that's just not how the way works. When we're in a society that's so intertwined, where so many things affect so many other things, policy affects so many people. You can't just tell people, "Oh, you grew up poor." I grew up rich, but guess what? We still have the same. We grew up in America. We still had the same opportunity, no matter what. Like, no, we fucking don't.
No, we don't.
Like, you grew up fucking on the Upper West Side or whatever, and I grew up, on the East Side, South Side of inner cities or whatever. Like, we didn't grow up the same. And it shouldn't always be up to the person to dig themselves out of that fucking big ass hole, when we have the capability, and I would say almost the responsibility, to help people that are in those holes, and help it so that future generations don't start off in those holes.
Right.
And it's just, that's the main difference between Republicans and Democrats. They want everything. If you don't succeed on your own, you're a fucking loser and you deserve to be fucking poor. And maybe your kids will be fucking smarter than you, and maybe they'll figure it out. But if they don't, maybe your grandkids will. And until somebody figures it out, we're not gonna help you.
That's so
Like
sad.
that.
It's true.
That's the
It's so
thing.
true. It is.
You know, every single generation, there's like a little bit of people that make it out, and that's who the Republicans love to befriend, like those few people that make it out and become like these huge successful people. And especially when they're like people of color, a lot of them turn out to be like Republican too, and they'll write them to fucking death. They were like, oh, look at this black dude, like he made it out of the fucking of Compton. You can too, if you just work hard enough. And like, can you? Yeah, sure, but guess what? It's not that easy, man.
You got to have a whole lot of luck to come up
Yeah,
out of a hole like Compton.
there's so many people think like if you work at a factory hard enough, you might rank up and be vice president of that company one day, or
No.
of that factory. Well, guess what? There's 500 other workers that they can't all be vice president. What are they gonna do? Are they just fucked? Like what happens to them?
They need to go to another company that has less people, so their chances of
No,
becoming
people
vice
say
president are
if you
better.
don't if you don't like your pay, if you don't like your job, quit, start your own business, be your own boss. Okay, what if everybody becomes their own boss? Who's working for who? Like their arguments just fall apart in seconds. They're like bullshit arguments. Like
But
it
they're
doesn't
believed.
the world doesn't work that way. And I mean, at least not anymore. Maybe in the past when when we weren't like so industrialized and like, globalized. But nowadays it's everybody's connected. every action has a reaction, and people are going to suffer in the world we live in today, where it's, our heavily capitalistic world. If you succeed, chances are you succeeded at the cost of somebody else. You, whether you liked it or not, you exploited somebody else for your success, and they're suffering for it. Whether you like it or not, that's usually how it goes in our current system.
But what you just said that's critical thinking, and that's the thing that we are lacking in our education system. We do not teach our children how to think critically, and we don't teach them about this most simple, basic concept of cause and effect. We don't even discuss that because that's not important, and logic isn't important, and philosophy isn't important, and forget about all that shit. Just learn to read and write well enough so you can go to work in that factory, so you can read the instructions that I give you. There you go. That's what you need.
And that's why education is so important. At least to me, um, that's why, people are big on, things like affordable college, or affordable university, and like free community college, stuff like that.
Right.
And I know college isn't for everybody. I'm a big advocate for, if you go to college and it's not for you, like, that's fine. There's so many other like things you could do, or that you could, fulfill your life and feel proud of who you are. It's not college or bust for, every single person out there.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
but some of those things that you talk about, like critical thinking and philosophy, stuff like that, should be taught like in our mainstream, like, K through 12 schools.
Yeah.
All
Basic philosophy and critical thinking is started at seventh grade level in European schools.
See, to me, all the like bullshit gen ed classes that we take at CSUB or wherever you go to university, to me, that level of schooling should be taught in high school. And then university and college should be more focused on the specialized, fields that you want to go into.
I agree.
Because it's just a waste of money at that point. You're fucking, right now I'm at BC taking a fucking geology class. Why the fuck do I need a geology class right now? Like, that makes no sense. I learned earth science in like 7th grade. Like, it's the same shit. Like, I'm learning about earthquakes. I'm learning about earthquakes in fucking college. Like, that just makes zero sense to me. But they
Well,
gotta do it because some fucking idiot in, their administration level thought, it's a necessity to graduate. Why? Like, we learned this shit in high school. And I
so
mean, I get it. Not
money.
everybody learned it in high school. I mean, part of it is the money. A big part of it is the money, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the thing. We need to revamp our educational system to, teach, the gen ed I mean, I feel like gen ed is very important, but not when you're like trying to figure out who the fuck you want to be. You should already have that gen ed shit down by then,
Where the fuck do you think geologists come from?
I mean, if you fucking learn geology in like 12th grade, 11th grade in high school, and you fucking fall in love with it and you want to study that in college, go for it. Take 10 more geology classes in college. But if you want to be fucking like literally anything else, you don't need geology. I mean, it's good to know. And like, if a fucking earthquake comes, like, oh shit, there's gonna be aftershocks because I learned that in geology class. Yeah, but that should be learned in like high school,
Yeah,
And I
well,
mean, we could have a whole episode on like why the college system is broken and why it is the way that it is today. And I have a lot of opinions about that too, but that's for another episode, I'm sure.
I took geology at CSUB, and I was very happy because Dr. Gillespie was super hot. That's basically why I like geology. And I did learn some cool shit in there about rocks. And now when I take my daughter out and we go out into the desert, I can identify things in striations, and I can explain about how mountains are formed to her. So it did come in handy, and it for my children. And like I said, Dr. Gillespie was hot. So, it
Yeah, so it's
just because you don't like geology, some
sorry
of
if there's
us
city
enjoyed
geology
it.
majors out there that are getting like shit on, but I don't mean to bash you. But I'm just like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, there's just so much unnecessary fluff that's in
Yes.
our education system that's either like repetitive or just not needed.
Well, I agree. I agree. I took a lot of courses that I was like, I have no fucking clue why I'm in here because
And I
this
mean,
is
I don't mind learning them. I just think they should be done at an earlier time. And I think, higher education should be more focused on the specialized fields that you're interested and that you want to pursue further.
what you guys, it was you and Kat from work made me change my mind about that too because I suspected it. I had my opinions about it, but like you said, not all of us want to go to college, and some people want to be geologists, and some people want to be psychologists, and some people want to be welders, and some people just want to sell fucking hamburgers and go home, and that's great. But the problem we have here is, welder makes 80, $90,000 a year. Hamburger person makes $12,000 a year. Not fair. It's not fair at all. You need to, just because you don't go to college doesn't mean you deserve to be fucking dirt ass poor. That's bullshit.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to that stuff, you could like start to talk about like other type of like policy and like just the way that our system works in general.
Right.
Where like I said, like, yeah, that person that's flipping the burgers, they're like you said, they're dirt poor making, $12 an hour. But I bet you that franchise owner that owns the restaurant, uh, that for a lot of people they didn't even go to college. They just, either uh, came into money or, for some reason were able to purchase that franchise. They're finding well off literally doing nothing
Right.
or close to nothing and benefiting off the work and the labor of the people below them. And that's when you come into like I was saying earlier about exploitation and your success in the way our system works right now comes off the backs of exploiting other people, whether you like it or not. And I know that sounds harsh. In a lot of ways, you can see that as sounding a little harsh, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend that they have a very successful family business that their dad started from the ground up, and now they're like very well off, and they have their own like list of employees and their own payroll, all this stuff. But if you really think about it, like if you just stop and think about it, without those employees, that business is nothing. So all the profits, they're my friend's parents have like a bunch of properties, and they make all this passive income from like renting and stuff like that. Aside from the actual business itself, like all that came from the work and the labor of their employees,
Right.
and all they get is like a fixed, usually pretty low income. And to me that just makes no sense. Like that just seems so morally and like ethically wrong. um like, yeah, people say, well, he took the risk in starting the business, like he should be rewarded for it. And that's good. I'm not saying he shouldn't be rewarded for it, but to the point where and not just takes like single him out, but like corporations or like other businesses, like
Right.
I saw this article that was saying that right now an average CEOs make like 300 times what like their lowest paid worker makes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't care if it's like the CEO of whatever. Like the CEO could be smarter, could even work harder than that lowest paid worker, but there's no fucking way they're 300 times smarter or work 300 times harder than anybody. Like to me, that's not a thing. Like that shouldn't exist, but it does because of the way our system works today. Um, and it's just like that's more like philosophical, and like you start talking about like economic systems and social systems.
Right. And I got, and I got to fucking rib you again because I have to take those fucking multi-million dollar fucking baseball players. I got to lump them in with the CEOs. Got to do it, man. You,
I mean, yeah, you could lump them in there. I mean, they're like you're talking about like athletes and stuff like that,
yeah.
because I
Yeah.
mean we live in a world of supply and demand. The NFL demands high skilled players. Nobody wants to watch a bunch of fucking overweight, like dad bod people play football.
Well, nobody wants to go into take their car in and have a bunch of people who can't paint the car correctly, but I'm not paying him $400 million because he's really fucking good at it.
Oh yeah, but I mean,
Same
the,
thing, man.
the players at the end, like if you look at it like big picture, they're compared to like what the owners make and like what like the commissioner makes, like these people rake in billions of dollars. Patrick Mahomes is gonna bring in billions of dollars to Kansas City Chiefs, like
Right?
over the course of his career. And you know, yeah, he's a millionaire, and you know, it's hard to feel sorry for like millionaires. Um,
No.
but I mean, they're employees of the owners, just like the people that you know, fucking cut the grass at the stadium, and you know, the janitors and the fucking popcorn sellers and whatever, you know.
Right?
Like it all comes down from the owners. So yeah, you might not think Patrick Mahomes is like worth 500 million or you know whatever they paid him, but that's doesn't reflect on him as much as it does on the owner. You know, the janitors can't get mad at the players for making that much money. They should be getting mad at the owners for not giving them more money. It's like when people talk to me about like tipping at restaurants, like you got to tip no matter what. Like I tip for the service. I don't tip for just to tip, you know. And they'll be like, "Well, that's fucked up. Like I make like $5 an hour and all my paycheck comes from tips." Like that's not my problem. Like you should go up to your manager and be like, "Why the fuck are you paying me $5 an hour? Why should I survive off tips? Like that's fucked up." I bet you they're making way more money because they're only paying you $5 an hour. Um, and I'm sure they could they're able they could be able to pay you more. They just don't. You
Yeah.
know,
That's not the manager. That's not the manager's
or
not
like the owner, you
setting
know,
it.
like
The
the owner.
owner. My problem with sports is not necessarily with the athletes. It's with the fucking system of what the hell I can't see. I seriously cannot see multi-billion dollar organizations from sports. It just, especially when our culture is struggling right now, we can't pay people, we can't take care of people, the infrastructure is crumbling, all this shit is happening, and we throw our money at fucking sports. It doesn't make any goddamn sense to me.
I mean, because at
Entertainment.
the end of the day, that's like people spending their money on, like nobody's forcing people to buy these football ticket games, you know.
No, no, they're not.
Nobody's forcing them to buy these jerseys. Like that's just their own free will. And like if they want to spend, you know, $300 on a football game, but their fucking rent was due 2 weeks ago, like that's that's really on them.
That's
Um,
really that. It goes back to they don't have the fucking skills. They don't have the life skills. They're making improper decisions. They don't have critical thinking skills. They can't think, I got to pay my rent. And they're like, no, I'd rather be entertained. That doesn't make any sense.
yeah. I mean, a lot of things don't make sense when you really think about them.
Right.
It's just,
That's philosophy. That's what we
yeah.
do here.
So it's just, it's everything's just so complicated, man. It's hard to like, I mean, if it was so easy to like solve any issue just by like sitting down for like 2 hours and thinking about it, we'd have like no issues.
Wouldn't that be
But
cool?
there's always going to be people that go against you, and then there are a lot of shit that plays into it, like greed, and there's always going to be selfish people that you know just want everything for themselves, or like people that look like them, or people that think like them.
Right. Right.
Um, and I'm rooting for the people that just want everything to be better for everybody. That's the boat I'm on. Um, and you know, there's a few people on that boat with me. You know, I see online like people, you know, there's big like they advocate for that, but there's also a lot of people that don't, and it's not that they don't necessarily want that. It's just that the way that they think they're doing the same thing. They think they're on that boat too, based on what you know they think,
Right.
based on their beliefs and based on how they were raised. And like you said, like some people were raised, you know, like listen to your elders and do all this, and And it's just like it's not that simple, especially nowadays.
Nothing is
Uh,
simple.
so we just gotta. It's gonna be like a very slow process. It always is. There's no way you could change societies and countries and like economic systems like overnight. If you do that, that shit will like collapse in an instant.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't
That
just snap your fingers and make every fucking McDonald's restaurant like socialized and fucking every employee owns the restaurant overnight. Like it's gonna take work. It's gonna take years. I know. You know what? It might not even happen in like your or my lifetime.
well, mine's going
But
to end before yours, man.
but I mean, even in mine, like it's can happen, yeah, but it's still kind of a long shot in my opinion. But I mean, I could definitely see the progress, in at least the years that I've like been interested in politics and like just seeing the way the world has kind of started to shift. I can see that I've seen the shift and I've seen towards where it's headed. And do I wish it could get there faster? Yeah, absolutely. I want to live in a society where everything is a lot better for everyone. Um, but the only thing we could really do for now is you know just do all we can to get there,
I agree.
and hope that we either get there or like our kids get there, or grandkids or whatever it may be.
It would take a massive it would take a massive undertaking of a lot of people at a lower socioeconomic status to agree with each other about what they need and how to fix it and band together. But they're at each other's throats right now.
It's hard, but you know what, to me that's something that's inevitable when the wage gap is increasing every single day,
Yeah.
and the wider there's going to be a tipping point to where there's so many people in poverty and so many underprivileged people that there's going to be no other option but to revolt and to fight back and to say, enough is enough, and we can't keep living like this, like we're going to die.
Yeah.
And to me, like I said, it's inevitable. It's not if it happens, it's when it happens. I know it's going to happen. There has to be some sort of change eventually, because this system that we're currently on, like this trajectory, it's doomed to fail. And people might not agree with that, but or they might, say, you're wrong, that's fucking bullshit, whatever. But to me, in my opinion, like studying the trends and like seeing everything for what it is, to me, it's doomed to fail in the current system that we're in.
Right.
It's not
And we're not talking about the country's doomed to fail. We're talking about the system that runs the country is doomed to
right.
fail. And
Yeah.
it can be reorganized and keep the country intact. And that's
Yeah.
been done historically many, many times. I mean, look at Russia in the 80s, just completely fell apart. Is Russia gone? No, they're a very powerful country right now. Again,
Yeah.
it's just a reorganization. And I agree. That's what we
And
need.
my hope is that we can make that change and make that shift before we have to reach that tipping point,
Yeah.
before there's a revolution and a fucking, you know, shit like that. My hope is that we could change before then, because, I feel like that would be a lot better.
Yeah, it would. It would be, the transition would be smoother rather than when you come to the tipping point, you panic and that becomes fear and fear becomes violence. And I don't want to see that. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that shit. I don't, and ammunition is really fucking hard to get in this state. You know what I mean?
So we'll get there.
We'll get there, man. All right, man. I like, tonight was really good. I don't think we pissed anybody off. Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe some fucking geologists.
Sorry to all the geology majors out there, but I don't give a fuck about rocks, so sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry, not sorry.
If you're hot, you'll make the class worthwhile. Keep going. All right, dude. This is it's been a good night. You ready to cut it short? Cut it off?
Yeah.
All right, man. Now listen, we didn't say much tonight that was controversial, but if we did, please just think it of as tongue in cheek. We don't mean any harm. We don't mean any to put anybody down. We're just trying to put some new ideas out there. And just remember this. Everything we said, we could have been thoroughly fucking wrong, except for about the geology part, man.
I mean, if there's a diehard capitalist out there, they might be a little offended, but other than that,
whatever, fuck them. They're probably Republicans anyway.
that's true.
All right, man. Well, this has been Bob
and Lalo,
and you've been listening to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. Tune in again. We appreciate it. Later. You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching the Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly wrong.